You're right.
We need to find a new one. By the way, there's a card out in the lobby for any of you who knew or worked with Stan Lichtenstein at Cron or KBHK. It's a little birthday thing. He's 92 and living in an assisted living place in Oakland. So if you know him, sign it. Also, Daryl writes this. If you have better Wi-Fi at home, you can watch the videos at www.nef.tv and just click circles and then the name of the person. You got it. All right. Enjoyed your lunch, I trust. Coffee and dessert will be coming shortly. The wine, of course. Can we have some applause for our serving staff? Yeah, he worked in a television studio one time, and he was in charge of the applause machine. Yeah, right. Okay, it is time for the news, and a specially created newscast by our very own James Chuck. Cast the news today, former 36-year KCBS reporter and 2012 inductee into the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame, Mr. Bob Melrose. And the man who, long before he spent time in television, was one of the rollicking reporters of the Big 610 KFRC, John Catchings. Gentlemen.
Here are the very latest headlines from 1948. Item 1. The President of the United States was Harry S. Truman. The Vice President, hard to believe, but we didn't have a Vice President in 1948.
The Governor of California was Earl Warren, and the Governor of New York was Thomas Dewey, and California did have a Lieutenant Governor, Goodwin Knight.
The cost of living in 1948 may surprise you. The average price of a new house in the United States was $7,700. Sounds good until you learn the average annual wage for workers in the U.S. jumped to $2,950.
Which is what I made in my first job. A new car would set you back about $1,250, and if you wanted to drive around, gas for your new buggy was an outrageous 16 cents a gallon. And in case you don't remember, 99.9% of the only cars sold in America were made in America.
If you wanted to see a movie, an adult ticket was 60 cents. 2 pounds of coffee at your local market, 85 cents. For you gourmets, a pound of hamburger, 45 cents. Pork and beans, a delicacy of the time, 2 cans for 25 cents. A first-class postage stamp cost 3 cents. Today, they're more than 15 times that.
In May of 1948, the independent Jewish state of Israel was created in Palestine by the United Nations. The creation of Israel marked the first time in 2,000 years that an independent Jewish state had existed. David Ben-Gurion became the newly formed country's first prime minister.
Immediately after the creation of Israel, the Arab-Israeli War began when forces from Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, and Jordan invaded the country. Fighting continued until 1949, when Israel was able to form several armistice agreements with other neighboring Arab states.
On June 24th, the Berlin blockade began. In response, the U.S. began something called Operation Vittles, better known as the Berlin Airlift. While here at home, President Truman signed an executive order, 9981, ending racial segregation in all the U.S. armed forces.
Turning from politics to commerce, the first Polaroid camera went on sale in 1948. Developed by Edwin Land, the camera sold for $89.75. It was nearly 15 times more popular than the Kodak Brownie, selling for $5.50.
Some interesting people were born that year. People like Ron Say, the baseball player and sportscaster, Al Gore, our 45th vice president, and Tipper Gore, who became his wife. No one has yet figured out how they arranged that. Also born that year, Lynette Squeaky Frome, would-be assassin of Gerald Ford.
1948 was a good year to be born and gave us Prince Charles, Alice Cooper, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Samuel L. Jackson, Olivia Newton-John, Donna Summer, and Ozzy Osbourne.
On January 30th, Orville Wright, the pioneer aviator born in 1871, passed away, as did legendary baseball player, I'll just say the Babe.
In entertainment, the top 3 pop songs were I've Got My Love to Keep Me Warm by Les Brown, the Woody Woodpecker song by Kay Kaiser, and It's Magic by Doris Day.
It was a good year for movies: Easter Parade, The Bicycle Thief, Key Largo, Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House, Sorry Wrong Number, Treasure of the Sierra Madre, Johnny Belinda, Rope, Red River, and The Red Shoes.
We were still reading books in mid-20th century, including such bestsellers as The Big Fisherman by Lloyd C. Douglas, The Naked and the Dead by Norman Mailer, and The Heart of the Matter by Graham Greene. Booksellers also noted that many readers were buying a certain book and reading it behind the newspaper or magazine. The title, The Kinsey Report on Sexuality of the Human Male. After that, you may not remember, there were 3 popular advances. In 1948, Velcro, the transistor radio, and anyone guess the third? Okay, it was the long-playing 33 RPM record, LP.
In 1947, that was the year before 1948, there were approximately 5,000 TV sets in American homes. In 1948, there were slightly over 1 million sets in use, and most of you will remember some of the hit programs from that year.
Hits such as The Ed Sullivan Show, Candid Camera, CBS Evening News, the Philco Television Playhouse, Texaco Star Theater, The Maury Amsterdam Show, and Arthur Godfrey's Talent Scouts.
There were no TV shows about them, but everyone knew they existed. A rowdy group was formed in 1948. They made quite a bit of news, all of it bad. The group, the Hells Angels.
Finally, the sports report for 1948, World Series, Cleveland beat the Boston Braves. NBA, Baltimore Bullets beat the Philadelphia Warriors. Stanley Cup, Toronto triumphed, I should say, over Detroit. It's not saying
I thought it'd be the Sharks.
it's ingrained. NCAA basketball, Kentucky defeated Baylor. NFL champions, Philadelphia Eagles, and the Kentucky Derby winner was Citation.
Who would later go on to win the Triple Crown. Legends headlines are written, produced, and directed by Jim Schock, who certifies he did not participate in any of the news or sporting events mentioned in this newscast. But he was 16 in 1948. I'm Bob Melrose.
And I'm John Catchings. We return you now to our regularly scheduled program and your host, Mr. Peter Cleveland.
Keep saying it. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Schock, for your inventive use of a Royal typewriter. And now our main program for today, television yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I want to introduce our moderator, a 40-year veteran of KGO TV and the only man in this room besides me who was teamed for any length of time with cameraman Albert Nelson Bullock. A member of the Nana Silver Circle, Mr. Don Sanchez.
Can you hear me now?
He's over at Sprint. Hey, John, you did it again.
I told you we had bloopers.
Good Lord, who let you in here?
Okay. Should I do this one, or do you want me over here? It's not working. No, it's not working.
It's not working.
Now it is.
Must be connected to your picture. Hi, how's everybody doing? Nice to see you. Glad to be here. Glad to be anywhere, actually. So I'm gonna have to put these on because Gravity sucks, and so does my eyesight, I suppose. Well, we have a distinguished group of folks here who, between them, have at least 20, 30 years of experience in broadcasting. And, they're all newcomers, but I think we'll be fascinated by what they have to say. Let us begin with the doyen of Bay Area News, of course, Belva Davis. She was the first African-American woman on West Coast television, a reporter with such high standards that some people really didn't know how to deal with her. Help her up there, please. Her family lived in West Oakland, 11 people in one apartment, and I don't know, she had that tenacity, and she knew doggone well that she was going to get out of there and do great things, and we all know that she has. She was a reporter at KSAN, a DJ on KDIA, and a TV reporter on KTVU in 1963. In 1966, she became the face of change at Channel 5, KPIX. She was there for 30 years before heading to KRON, and eventually, of course, as you know, at Channel 9, where she hosted the This Week show in Northern California for years and years and years. She wrote an autobiography. I see somebody actually had one autographed here today, right? So that's good. I'm not going to list all of the awards that she's received because I'm sure you can look up her bio or go to the website and see the video and you'll know about that. And all the boards that she has sat upon, including she was president of the local AFTRA board, a national AFTRA member too, the days before SAG-AFTRA. That's how we know each other so well. Please welcome Belva Davis. Next, Manny Ramos is another longtime legend, 35 years in the business. He was in San Jose State working for a degree in journalism when he became a production assistant at Channel 11. And it was there that he knew exactly what he wanted to do. In 1974, he was a reporter for 4 years in Sacramento at KOVR. Came back to the Bay Area at KRON, and then from 1979 to 2008, he was a reporter at KPIX. Manny's won 21 journalism awards, including 6 Emmys, and he was AFTRA Reporter of the Year in 19... Sorry. Now, he also has his own company. As a media trainee, he's showing executives how to get their messages across in an interview. He obviously is deeply needed in D.C., but that's another story for another time. Okay, are they turning on me already? He also teaches on-camera techniques at the Academy of Art University. Please welcome Manny Ramos. Rita Williams calls herself the first broadcast broad, and don't throw silverware at me because that's a direct quote from her. Yes, yes, yes. She was a fixture on Channel 2 for more than 35 years, part of the wave of women who blazed first in hard news back in the 70s. Tenacious, hard-hitting, and she knew how to get to the heart of the stories. She earned the trust and respect of cops, and actually all law enforcement, digging up facts on a lot of crime stories. The rest of us were always playing catch-up with her. She was tough and compassionate. Not bad for a woman from Texas Tech, y'all. Working with politicians and discovering the allure of TV in San Antonio. She's won a lot of awards. And I read this fact, so I guess it's true. She's been sleeping with the same man for more than 40 years. And if her husband finds out... I know, it's a really bad joke. No. She and Lindsay have been married for 35 years, almost 40. 40 years, okay. Well, we'll talk about those 5 years. There's a son and kids involved in that. Please, please welcome Rita Williams. One more. Tom Bakar is a rarity on our panel because he's still working. Go figure. He's on Channel 2 where he explores what's gone wrong with the system, leaves all of us vulnerable. Tom became a lawyer, and then he joined Nader's Raiders. Remember Ralph Nader's group making changes and establishing consumer protection laws. When he came to San Francisco, he was a consumer guy at Channel 7 and established the famous Christmas toy test. We all remember that. Eventually, he headed to Los Angeles on TV at CBS and Fox and CBS Radio. He was the first reporter at the scene of the Rodney King riots. He got hit, which explains a lot of things with Tom's behavior. Eventually, Tom came back to the Bay Area at KCVU, where he continues to this day with his consumer investigative reports, and also he has the opportunity to pursue his passions of aviation and space stories. Tom does not believe in fake birth certificates, but he believes Elvis is still alive. You just hand him a guitar and listen to what happens. He believes that. Sorry, Ben isn't here, but I'll say sorry for him anyway. His bio says that Tom is not called in sick at work since 1981 because he doesn't want to miss anything. He didn't miss today, but he did take the day off from work. Please welcome Tom Baker. Pages are sticking together. All right. Oh, there's me. Yeah, I'm retired. I was at Channel 7 for 40 years. I had one other television job. That was in San Luis Obispo in 1963. That's the extent of my career. And I graduated USC. In case you don't remember, I did this at the Emmy Awards. I just want to make sure you know. This was me on TV, you know.
Your autograph?
No autographs, yes. But those, you know, great when summertime and or wintertime and you need something to start a fire, those would be great. I think that's enough about me. I think about when I started though in television in San Luis Obispo, we would go out and do the story, we would shoot it, we'd bring it back and it would soup because it was black and white film in those days. We'd wait for that, then I would edit it, I would write it and then do it on the air. And they've gone back to doing exactly the same thing today, have they not? And you're still out there, Tom. You have to do that every day. And how difficult is it? Because there's so many other things you have to do as well. Facebook, and streaming stuff. It's just, I don't know how you do it.
There's a lot more responsibilities. You have to do these things which they require. It's not optional. And there's much more technology involved, a lot more sources of information. And something which is kind of miraculous, it could be a lot better, but Skype is something that we use a lot now because sometimes to save the hour from driving down to San Jose, we'll do a Skype as opposed to going down and doing an interview because when I started at KTVU, I think we had a noon news and we had a 10 o'clock news, and now we go from 4 in the morning till 10 in the morning, an hour at noon, and then from 4 in the afternoon, essentially to 8 o'clock, and then from 10 o'clock to 11:30. So it's very much like a KCBS operation now. So you have to have access to all of that stuff. So that's kind of the way it is now. And the requirements keep getting more and more. But that's just the nature of the business at the speed it's going.
Well, Rita, of course, that was happening as you were winding down your career. But you were always in there, you know, digging for stories, and amazingly so. Did that interfere at all with what you were doing?
Well, Tom, we at Channel 2, they still are not editing their own stories, are they? Is anybody doing that now?
No, we have no MJs at all, whatever that
Don't worry,
means.
that'll change.
But we do have a situation where when I started, we went with a photographer out in the field and we brought the stuff back and edited it. Now we edit almost everything out in the field, in the trucks,
Right.
or in Explorers if we're in the smaller truck.
Well, back to your question, that was already happening when I was there, and being in on union negotiations, they have the right to have the reporters shoot and edit there, but they've never imposed it for some reason. I wanted to make sure it hadn't happened since I left. But I sort of saw the handwriting on the wall as I was leaving. And social media, I think I kind of got an exemption because I gave a year's notice I was leaving. So I didn't have to tweet. I still have never tweeted in my life. But I think what you said, digging, first off, I was from a print background and worked on Capitol Hill for the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, got my master's in Washington while I was working full-time, and my whole background was print, so I was used to digging, and we haven't gotten to the present, but what I see so much is people just want to fill up their minute and a half or whatever they have to do now. I always saw it as, that is, we had unlimited time, and if we were on at 10, we should have something new. So you should keep digging right up until almost you went on the air. The odd couple, Bob Melrose, that I shared an office with at the Hall of Justice in San Francisco, and they did call us the odd couple. I'll tell you which one was the tidy one and which one wasn't. Do you have to guess? Yes. But, I spent as much time with Bob as I did with Bill Moore, who was my constant companion for 20, 25 years. They used to say that Belva was Bill's nighttime life, I was his daytime. But anyway, we would dig, and people would say, why don't you go home? You know, you can go home at 6 o'clock and we're not on till 10. Well, if a cop had told me that they've just arrested that suspect that we did the story on at 3 o'clock, well, damn it, we're going to go out and try to find a picture of him or update that story until we went on the air. So sometimes my getting a lot of exclusives was because we were on later back then. We didn't have all those morning shows and noon shows, and we didn't even have an evening show back when I started at KTVU back in January of 1980. So we had an opportunity to keep digging, and I hate seeing it now, but sometimes it's not always updated.
Well, there was a lot of digging going on in the early days at Belva, certainly because it was something new, what television was doing, and the impact of television news was something that you were exploring, discovering things that had never been done before.
You're asking the wrong person that question. So I did was fight.
Well, that was my next question. I know. Consider.
That's all I did was fight. I mean, every step of the way, which is why by the time I really needed to know something about technology was when I thought I wanted to retire and go do other things. And then I realized, oh, that was done. But nevertheless, you know, I am the last person to ask about the new of today because I didn't learn the old in terms of the electronic imprint on what news is.
But just about the fact that you had to fight everywhere, every way, as a woman, and an African-American woman, it was something totally new to television in the 60s.
Was I lucky?
Yeah, well, and you were talented besides.
No, but was I lucky? I mean, I had all of the no-nos, you know, people who were being rejected. In one person, they could hire one person, and they could make 3 hash marks. But it was almost like that, I mean, and I'm sure that was very helpful in coming along. My transition from radio, which is, you know, it was in print, but in radio is where you know, sort of make people who come to TV listen to whether they can understand what you're saying and how you say it and all of that stuff. And so it was through radio that I had a chance to envision myself in an area where there was no black female working. And I really tried to convince them, you know, I can speak. So all I have to do is stand without trembling, and we got a deal. Just kidding around, but it was almost like that. Once I got the voice test, lost the weight that they told me I had to lose. Now, I love some, well, I guess they wouldn't mind it today. Everybody takes everything lightly. But in those days when they said, well, you know, we want to hire you, but we need you to lose 10 pounds. So they hired me in December. They didn't put me on the air till February. But it was like that, and I was grateful, and I did my dieting, and I did all the things I was told to do because I wanted that doggone job.
Oh, and you're still healthy, see?
Still,
So
yeah.
there you are. But that is outrageous that they would ask that kind of thing. This is like a Hollywood movie
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
They never did that with you, and never did it with you, and never did it with you,
They
right?
did it with me.
Really?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, so 69, somebody said I was too young to retire, but I'm 71, so that 48 newscast, I was a year old back then. So I've been around the block a little bit, and I was from Texas, and I worked in Washington. I was a management trainee with Westinghouse. You remember great Westinghouse Broadcasting. and that was in '71, I believe. And then wanted to be on the air, and I interviewed with all these folks. They were WRC in Washington and KPRC or whatever it was in Houston. And the news directors told me a couple of things. One is that there's no sense of authority in a woman's voice, and therefore men will never allow you to deliver hard news. So when I won an award at 55, I pointed that out. And then they also said, what are you going to do after the age of 40? And I was 20-something, early 20s then, and I said, I'll still be reporting, I'll just be better. And they said, no. They will never allow women to age on the air, which is still kind of true. I mean, even though Belva and I kept on going, and Belva, to her credit, she broke so many barriers well before me. But when I started in San Antonio, it was a similar thing. It was, we had more or less, they had men come in and judge me on camera, and this is after all this reporting and stuff, to see whether you looked okay on camera. And they wanted me to change some blemishes and some other, same thing, that today you'd be sued. But yeah, definitely, that was early 70s, 72, I guess, was the first on-air job I had.
Well, in the women, we got beat up this time. I have to tell you about one thing that sort of went against the grain in terms of what the outcome is expected to be. I was pretty new, and I was sent to the airport one Sunday to go and interview the president of Westinghouse Broadcasting Company. Now, I'd been working maybe 2 months or 3 months, or whatever it was, and I could clearly see that I was supposed to fail on this. But Don McGannon was a nice guy. This is not a usually told story. So I went out, met him. A couple of weeks later, I got a letter from him. Don't worry about your college education. I don't have one. I don't have a degree. Don't worry about it. He sent me a list of all the people he knew that were successful and didn't have a college degree. And so what happened, where they were trying to get me to mess up with the head of the company, McGannon became my pen pal. And it's sort of like, you don't think I kept that a secret. I think it helped me get through some of those early years. Unintentional.
I just wonder what today's kids are learning about from what you've gone through, but what they are told in this business and preparing for it. And you're teaching at the Academy of Art University, right? Future broadcasters. Do they have to lose weight? Do they have to look out? Because that doesn't exist today. But are they already all prepared to, I'm immediately going to go to work at Channel 2 or Channel 7? Or,
Well,
Manny, first off, didn't you face discrimination as a...
I did. I remember I started out, and I remember I'd been in television about 3 weeks, and I was called into the executive producer's office, and he said, "We really like you, but we got a problem with your name." And I said, "What?" He said, "That Manuel Ramos is just too ethnic." He said, so I said, "Well, all right, what do you want to do?" He said, "Well, we've been thinking about it. We want you to change it to Randy."
Randy Ramos?
Randy Ramos. Randy Ramos. And he said, because I think most of our audience just won't accept you. And so I went home, and that night thought about it, and came back the next day, and I just said, "Here's the deal. I never liked my name, but I said, it's my dad's name. I'm a junior." And I said, "Just can't do it. Can't change my name. And I'm just going to have to keep it." And so even though my nickname is Manny, I kept it till the day I got on television. That's what the Super said. I remember this too, is that when I went to Cron, the news director was talking to me, walked out of the office, and on his desk was a report from a consultant. And it said, Manny Ramos on it. And so I got it. And the first line said, "Manny is the perfect person to fulfill your minority needs. He's Mexican, but he doesn't sound or look like one." That was it. And while I'm here, I want to say hello to Fred Lacoste, who was the news director at KNTV,
Yep.
who hired me and was the most giving person I ever met. He was he was so supportive all the time, and I'll never forget you, Fred.
Somehow here we're all related. Hey, I was hired, I grew up in a little town, Santa Maria, in Southern California, and Santa Barbara County. And when I got hired by Pat Palillo, the news director of Channel 7 at the time, with Van Amberg and Jerry Jensen and all those people, he called the city to see if that was my real name. And I said, yes, Don is my real name. So my dad was a prominent guy, and he'd been on the school board and all that sort of stuff, and he was in the real estate business, and also we were established in town, but I think there was something about the name that helped get the job, obviously. Getting back to the kids, though, if we could.
Yes. Well, first of all, most of the kids I teach don't want to be in television news.
Oh.
It's not their, they don't watch it. They are really interested in it. They want to do production. They want to be online. They want to produce their own things. I would say we figure out of every 10 students, maybe 2 of them want to be in television. The rest want to produce their own things. They want to do other things and go on. I mean, we used to take tours of local TV stations all the time. And after a while, we asked students, they said, well, we're not really interested in watching, doing television news. Although we do want to see, they're really interested in talking to the anchors about what it's like to be on camera. They really want to know about that. But, it's worrisome. They're just not really interested in it. And,
when I think about young people, Tom mentored so many people, both at 7 and 2, and probably in LA too. Carolyn Johnson is the perfect example who became the anchor at Channel 7, now anchors KNBC in Los Angeles. She was one of your interns, production assistants, a long time ago. You've encouraged a lot of kids to get into this business or explore and research.
I've been lucky to get a lot of breaks. The only reason I got into TV at all was because I had a law degree and I had had some experience in a major market, which was Cleveland. And at that time, consumer reporting was the hottest thing around. So I'm a lawyer, former business executive, former news raider, and I do TV. So my first full-time job in broadcasting was at KGL, where I actually learned how to do TV from guys like Al Bullock and guys like Fred Pardini, who really taught me things. In fact, old Al, he said one time, I'm going, hey, Al, shoot this, shoot that, shoot this. He says, TV Tommy, the name he gave me. TV Tommy, we are not shooting Ben-Hur here. And I worked with Fred, who's a great, great artist, Bill Moore, who was the absolute basis of the camera staff at Channel 2. Lucky enough to work with people who were very helpful like Van Amberg, Jerry Jensen, Dennis Richmond, Bella Davis. So I just always felt if somebody's going to give me those kind of breaks, that's exactly what I have to do. So I probably had in 40 years maybe a couple of hundred interns, probably 50 of them working in the business right now, including Carolyn Johnson, who's down in LA, and Liz Clayman, who I think is on Fox Business, and a whole bunch of them.
It's interesting, though, as you were saying, the kids today are more interested in streaming or whatever else, whatever the future is going to be. Is television
I don't know. I mean,
gone? Is it dead yet?
I don't think it's dead, but I think it's going to change. I think I think most of our students